First, I want to thank the Tea Party Network for having me back, and I want to thank you all for picking up voting. And last September, I spoke out here. You voted unanimously to support the American laws for American courts, and I want to give you guys a hand because it has passed both all the Senate subcommittees and the House subcommittees, and we'll be going to the House floor and the Senate floor for an up or down vote. Thank you for a job well done. The only thing that remains right now is that we need to make sure and be vigilant and still get your troops out there emailing and calling the senators and the House to make sure that they bring it to the floor for a vote, especially in the Senate. And I would encourage you, really the key to the Senate is going to be Senator Don Getz, the president of the Senate, because that's really where it's died the last 3 years. It's not been brought to the floor for an up or down vote. So I would encourage him and thank him for standing behind the bill and thank him for making sure that this bill gets brought, this important bill gets brought to a head for an up or down vote. Now, how many people in here know about ALAC that were here, have really have an understanding, or I guess really who does not really have a strong understanding of ALAC? Raise your hand. There's a few of you in here, okay. I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief understanding of what it is and why we need it real quick. And then after that, I'm going to jump into the outreach, a little bit of outreach. American Laws for American Courts was designed by a friend of mine, David Yerushalami, who actually drafted it, was very wise. It's a bill that keeps foreign laws, which violate state constitutions and U.S. constitutions, from being used in our court systems. And you would say, well, don't we already have these protections? Aren't they supposed to be there? The fact of the matter is, yes, they are, but they've not been utilized. And this bill will ensure that judges do not use the law incorrectly and use foreign law on U.S. soil. Some of the examples of how that's happening every day and why it's important is, well, first let me explain why it's important. Because some of the opponents that you've heard, many of you have probably heard of the last 3 years, if you've heard about ALAC, you have groups like CARE, or the American United Voices for America, or Emerge USA, which are all Islamist groups, saying, hey, this is going to cause problems. We're not going to be able to perform marriages. It's violating our religious freedom. It's going to affect Catholic canon law. It's going to, they do the same thing, and it's going to reflect Jewish halakha law and does the same thing. That's not true. The fact of the matter is, those elements of Sharia, it does impact, even though it does not list any specific religious group, and it does not call it any religious law, Catholic canon law, Jewish halakha law, or Islamic Sharia specifically. But it does have an impact on Sharia because Sharia has components that are anti-ethical to our Constitution and that violate our state and U.S. constitutions. And I'll explain some of those in a moment. Now, how it does not impact Jewish halakha law or Catholic canon law is because Catholic canon law renders under Caesar what is Caesar's. The same thing with Jewish halakha law. They render the law of the land is the law of the land. There's a Jewish saying, I'll mess it up, but it's Dina al-Madina, something like that. And it means the law of the land is the law of the land, meaning they obey the law of the land first. They render to Caesar what is Caesar's. This is not true under Sharia. And when I talk about Sharia or Islamic doctrine or Islamic law, I use Islamic texts written for Islamic audiences. And there's a book that I use. This right here, just to give you a quick overview. This is a desktop reference of Islamic Sharia law. It's called the Umdat al-Sadiq, or the Alliance of the Traveler. It has the seal of approval of the Al-Azhar University, the oldest and most respected university on Islamic jurisprudence in the world. It has the seal of approval of the Grand Mufti of Jordan, Syria, and Egypt. There's a seal of approval of the Fiqh or Legal Council of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. It also bears the approval of the Fiqh or Legal Council of North America and the International Institute of Islamic Thought. In this, it talks about what jihad is, Islamic warfare against non-Muslims to establish religion. This is the only accepted English-Arabic translation of Islamic law, and this is dated 1991 copyright. This isn't some ancient manuscript that's been outdated. This is a law I would compare to federal code or Islamic code, which violates our federal code. And it's a parallel legal system they want to introduce in order to subvert ultimately our Constitution and replace it, and they've openly said so, many Islamists. So you are looking at a parallel legal system. This is not an Article 1 issue. This is an Article 6 issue, that the Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. So that's what we're dealing with. Second thing, why is the law important? The law is important for a few reasons. The law is important because we have foreign law being used on U.S. soil every single day in our court systems that violate U.S. law. They violate due process, and the people that are actually most impacted are many of the Muslims, and especially women, female Muslims, that came here to get away from these barbaric laws, are being impacted the most. And here's an example. The three ways that it's being enacted are through comedy, through choice of venue, and choice of law. What happens is you enter into a contract, and comedy, first of all, we accept reciprocity with other countries, their legal system. So under Islamic law in this book, which is a desktop reference, there are volumes that go with it, it says that as a male, first of all, I get to choose if I divorce or not. The wife has to ask me permission. If I don't grant her permission, she doesn't get a divorce. Now, if I decide I want to divorce her, I simply say 3 times, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and it's done. I keep all the wealth, with the exception of what she came to the table with, her dowry, at marriage, or whatever I forget what they call it. I keep the children, and she's destitute on her own. So males here in America oftentimes will fly home to their countries, they will get a divorce, they will get a decree, they will fly back to America, walk into a judge, hand an order, and he will say, yep, stamp it, issue it to a marshal, and say, go enforce this order. And this is how women's rights in U.S. soil are being violated every day. So this law is very important for that aspect alone. The other way is choice of law. Now, most people understand that when they speak, it's all in Arabic, it's recitation. Most of their marriages are. So if a Muslim male marries an unknowing female here in the United States, may not speak Arabic, the ceremony is in Arabic, she gives up a right, but she's consented to choice of law, to Sharia. Now, she doesn't realize that she's consenting to a law that's negating many of her rights. That's another way that it can happen. And then choice of venue. We choose the venue where we want to have it, so another country, wherever. Those countries operate under that. Now, another thing is a study's been done by Frank Gaffney's Center for Security Policy. And he studied over 50 of the most egregious cases. And Florida has 4 cases itself that were ruled outside the Constitution, ruled in accordance with Sharia law that violate our state constitution. So it does happen. I'm going to give you 2 examples. One example in New Jersey 3 years ago, a gentleman beat his wife to the point of hospitalization. That's his right in accordance with his Quranic and with law. And he raped her in accordance with the Quran. He can plow his till as he pleases. Women are property to be plowed. He did that. The judge ruled in his favor in America. Thankfully, went to an appellate court where it was overturned. Another case happened in Maryland. A woman who is now living with another man, wanted a divorce, was in an abusive relationship, took her children, left. She's now in another relationship. Her legal proceedings are going on in Maryland. And the judge said that she needed to go to Pakistan for the divorce. She says, I can't return to Pakistan. This was a choice of venue law. She says, in Pakistan, it's a capital offense to commit adultery. I'm living with other men. They will kill me there. The court ruled against her and said that he should have, and ruled in his favor. He was awarded according to Pakistan rules, and she lost her children, her home, and all her wealth. Those are just 2 examples. So I want to commend you again, and I want to thank you for getting this law on the books, and pray that we get it passed and get to an up or down vote. Yes, sir.
Even if you can get Reed to bring it up, I can't imagine why you think Obama would sign it.
This is not one, this is a state. We do it state by state. We've actually passed it in 7 states. This is Florida. So this is a state House Bill 903, and it's a Senate Bill 386. And we've already, like Senate Bill 386 here in Florida, House Bill 903, and this is Florida. And we passed it in 7 states now. One of the states, and one of the things you do here is they said, well, it got overturned out in Kansas. This is not true. Kansas went on their own and wrote a law. It was an anti-Sharia bill. It singled out Sharia, which singled out Islam. And because of that, we knew it was going to get defeated. Now, Act for America pumped about $70,000 into getting that passed. It was going to pass probably around 55%. We wanted to pass large because it was one of the first states that had done this, and it passed with over 70% of the population on a vote by the public. It got overturned by the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is the lawfare arm of the Muslim Brotherhood here in America. They sued and got it overturned quite quickly. ALAC law, the law that we have, passed in the following year, and it's been intact in Kansas since. So Florida would make the eighth state to be passing this law, and we look at about 20 states are looking at it right now. So we are passing on a state by state, because you're exactly right. Holder will not, and this, Obama will not sign off on this.
If it passes in Florida, is it going, what's gonna happen to the laws that Florida already has that incorporate Sharia? I understand there's one in.
Well, again, these are rulings, these are legal rulings that are done. We really don't have laws that are like legislative laws that are violating the Constitution. But we have judges that are violating the ruling. What's going to happen is they will no longer be able to make those comedy rulings if they violate the state constitution or the federal constitution.
What's going to happen to the rulings that have already been made that support Sharia?
Well, again, I'm not a judge at this point. I imagine that they could, I don't know what the legal standing is. I'm not a lawyer. All I know is that law is needed, and yes, sir.
Well, to address that, unless the law specifically says it's prospective or retrospective, rather, which means it applies to things before, which is very unusual in a law. I'm not a lawyer either, but I happen to know this. If it's prospective, then it means it applies from here on into the future, which is the way 99% of the laws are, as they should be, because otherwise you criminalize some innocent conduct. My question specifically.
Yes, sir.
As I understand it, this law came about because of a judge's ruling, or this bill came about because of a judge's ruling in Tampa that involved an internal conflict within a mosque.
It's not, the law was actually being pushed before that. That ruling is one of the court cases that they had some thing, and I really don't think that one is a good example in Florida.
That was my question. I know that I haven't, excuse my ignorance, because I haven't read this particular bill, but maybe you can answer the question. My concern is that if you can have a court rule how a mosque is to operate, and then have a court rule how a Baptist church is not supposed to operate. Now, is there a protection in there for freedom of religion?
Your freedom of religion will not violate unless it violates the Constitution. If it violates the Constitution, then it absolutely, it's not telling the mosque how it can operate unless it violates the Constitution. Under Islamic law, we can stone and kill people. Well, under Christian law and Judeo-Christian values and our laws in America, we can't vote that. We can all make a vote as we want. We're not a democracy. So we can vote murder is okay, but because of our law, the Republic, the Constitution, even though we all wanted to vote that and say that it's okay, it's never okay. We can't violate the law. So basically it keeps it within the confines of law. As long as it does not violate the state constitution or the U.S. Constitution, then they're fine. But if it violates it, then no, they have no right to operate that way anyway.
Because the issue was an internal policy of the church.
Yeah, that one there is a very bad example, and it really doesn't apply because that would fly under this law. And a lot of people try to use that as an example, and it really doesn't meet the criteria.
Okay,
I agree with you.
yeah, you're talking about criminal conduct versus civil.
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Bear with me 1 second.